my sister yelled. You will regret this! When I refused to lend her my car, I thought she was joking, until she stole it the next morning and hours later the police called. I never thought I'd be the guy pacing around his living room at 7 in the morning, wondering if he was losing his mind over a missing car. But there I was, barefoot, disheveled, heart hammering against my ribs, as the first real signs of trouble stared me in the face. It all started the night before, in a conversation that barely lasted 5 minutes but somehow managed to unravel years of patience. My younger sister, Madison, had been crashing on my couch for the past 6 months under the promise of getting back on her feet. She was 22, impulsive, and had a knack for turning every second chance into another disaster. But I wanted to believe she could change. I really did. That night she burst into the living room, makeup half done, phone buzzing with party invites, and demanded, "Lend me your car, Tyler. I need to go out tonight." It wasn't even a question. It was a demand, sharp and selfish. I said no without even thinking. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I knew Madison's history. A suspended license, 2 totaled cars, and a DUI charge still hanging over her like a storm cloud. I couldn't risk it, not again. Her reaction? Predictable. She screamed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "You will regret this!" before slamming her bedroom door so hard the walls rattled. I rolled my eyes and went back to watching TV. I figured it was just another one of her tantrums. A few slammed doors, a few angry texts, maybe some passive-aggressive silence in the morning. Nothing I hadn't survived before. I had no idea that by sunrise my life would be flipped completely upside down. When I woke up the next morning, the first thing I noticed was how eerily quiet the apartment was. No blaring pop music from Madison's room, no clatter of her makeup brushes hitting the bathroom counter, no smell of burnt toast she usually forgot in the toaster. Just silence. For a second, I allowed myself to hope maybe she'd gone for an early walk. Maybe the fight last night had finally made her realize something. Maybe this was the beginning of her growing up. But then I looked out the window. My driveway was empty. At first, my brain couldn't even process it. I stood there blinking, staring at the patch of cracked concrete where my car, my 2013 Honda Civic, the one thing I truly owned in this world, should have been. Gone. The keys had been in the kitchen drawer, tucked behind some mail. I sprinted over, yanked the drawer open, papers flying everywhere. Empty. I felt something hot and electric rise in my chest. I ran to Madison's room and threw the door open. She was gone too. Bed unmade. Clothes thrown everywhere. Window open, curtains billowing in the morning breeze like some cruel little flag of surrender. I grabbed my phone, thumb shaking as I texted her. "Me, where's my car?" Delivered. No answer. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. I started pacing. What the hell was she thinking? Where could she have gone? Was she drunk? Was she high? Was she even alive? My mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. For hours, I sat there on the couch, phone clutched in my hand, waiting. Every time it buzzed, I practically threw myself at it. Spam email. Group chat memes. Nothing from Madison. Around noon, just when the hopelessness started to settle in, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Something in my gut told me to answer it anyway. "Hello?" I said, voice cracking. "Is this Tyler Benson?" a clipped, professional voice asked. "Yes," I said, feeling ice flood my veins. "This is Officer Harding from the Monroe County Police Department. We have your vehicle. There's been an incident." I swallowed hard. "What kind of incident?" There was a pause. The kind that made your stomach flip. "Your sister was involved in a traffic stop early this morning. She refused to pull over. There was a short pursuit. She crashed the vehicle attempting to evade arrest. It's an impound now. Significant damage. You'll need to come down to the station." I sat there, stunned, the officer's words ringing in my ears like church bells. Crash. Pursuit. Arrest. Thousands of dollars flashed before my eyes. Insurance premiums. repairs, legal fees. Or maybe it didn't matter. Maybe my car was already totaled, my life now just another scrap to be swept off the highway. The officer gave me the address, polite but detached, like this was just another Thursday for him. For me, it was the moment everything snapped. I didn't even bother responding to Madison's latest text, the one that finally came through just as I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Madison, please don't be mad. It's not that bad. Love you. Not that bad? I locked the apartment door behind me without a second thought. As far as I was concerned, Madison had locked herself out of my life forever. The police station looked exactly the way you'd expect: beige walls, flickering fluorescent lights, the faint smell of burnt coffee hanging in the air. I stood at the front desk, feeling out of place in my wrinkled t-shirt and yesterday's jeans. The officer behind the glass barely glanced at me as he slid a clipboard across the counter. Sign here to claim personal property. She's in holding if you want to see her. I froze, pen hovering over the paper. If I wanted to see her. Every part of me wanted to turn around and walk straight out that door. Let her rot. Let her learn what consequences felt like for once. But curiosity, or maybe some stubborn flicker of brotherly loyalty, dragged my feet toward the holding cells. A heavy-set female officer buzzed me through a set of double doors. Down the hall, behind thick steel bars, I saw her. Madison. She was curled up on the bench, face buried in her arms, looking small and scared. For a second, I felt that old tug in my chest, the one that always made me forgive her, always made me excuse the messes she left behind. But then she lifted her head and saw me. And instead of looking guilty, she smiled weakly and said, "Hey, big bro. You're not mad, right?" Like she had borrowed my favorite sweater without asking. Like she hadn't wrecked my entire life in the span of a single night. I didn't say a word. "Tyler, come on. It's not a big deal. The car's not even that bad." She laughed nervously, like it was a joke we were both in on. I clenched my fists so hard I felt my nails bite into my palms. "You stole my car, Madison," I said, my voice low and shaking with fury. "You could have killed someone. You could have killed yourself." She rolled her eyes, that same bratty look she always wore when she didn't get her way. "God, you're so dramatic. You sound like Mom." That was it. That was the moment something inside me, something old and tired and fed up, finally snapped in two. I turned away, heart pounding so hard it hurt. As I walked back toward the front desk, the officer handed me a few items in a plastic bag: my car keys, bent and useless now, and Madison's phone, still buzzing with texts from her so-called friends. "Are you posting her bail?" he asked casually. I didn't even hesitate. "No." He raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. He'd probably seen this kind of thing before. "She'll be arraigned tomorrow. Grand theft auto, resisting arrest, reckless endangerment." Each word landed like a hammer. "Sign here if you're filing formal charges." The pen felt heavy in my hand. For years, I had been cleaning up Madison's messes, patching over her disasters, convincing myself it was just a phase. That she'd grow out of it. That maybe if I loved her enough, she'd finally become the person I always hoped she could be. But now I knew better. I pressed the pen down and signed. My hand didn't even tremble. It didn't take long for the news to spread. By the time I pulled into my driveway, what was left of it, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. First my mother. Then my uncle. Then even Madison's best friend from high school, the one who used to sneak her out through the bedroom window. Every message said the same thing in different words. "How could you do this to family? She's young. She made a mistake. You're ruining her life." I ignored them all. About an hour later, Mom showed up at my apartment without warning. She didn't even knock, just banged on the door until I opened it, her face red and puffy with tears. "Tyler," she gasped, storming past me into the living room. "How could you turn your own sister over to the police?" I shut the door calmly behind her. "I didn't turn her in," I said. "She did that herself." Mom spun around, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You're heartless. You know she's been struggling. How can you be so cold? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. Struggling? I said. She stole my car, wrecked it, ran from the police, and almost killed herself. And I'm the bad guy. Mom's face twisted, searching for something, anything, to throw at me. But she had nothing. Because deep down, she knew. She always knew. Madison wasn't a victim. She was a tornado. And this time, she wasn't tearing through my life anymore. I crossed my arms, feeling the final nail drive itself in. Tell everyone whatever story you want, I said. But I'm done. Mom's mouth opened and closed like she wanted to say something more, beg maybe, or guilt me, the way she used to when we were kids. But I didn't give her the chance. I walked to the door, opened it, and waited. Slowly, bitterly, she brushed past me without another word. When the door clicked shut behind her, I leaned my forehead against it for a moment, breathing in the silence. For the first time in years, I realized it didn't hurt anymore. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Madison's voicemail. Her voice was cracked and broken, desperate in a way I hadn't heard since we were kids, and she scraped her knee falling off her bike. Ty, please. Please don't do this. I messed up, okay? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please come get me. I can't stay here. I'll be better. I promise. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the whole message, letting it wash over me like cold rain. Part of me wanted to go. To be the older brother again. To bail her out and tell her it was okay, like I always did. But that part of me was smaller now. Fading. The bigger part, the part that remembered the late nights worrying, the credit card bills in my name, the broken promises and the endless apologies that never meant anything, was finally louder. I didn't call her back. Instead, I called the police station and confirmed that I would be pressing full charges: grand theft auto, resisting arrest, endangerment. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Are you sure? The clerk asked gently, as if giving me one last chance to change my mind. I didn't hesitate. Yes. I'm sure. When I hung up, I felt it, that strange, almost alien sensation blooming in my chest. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't anger. It was relief. Madison's tears, my mother's shouting, the family's judgment, none of it could touch me anymore. I was finally free. 2 days later, I went to see the car. It sat in the impound lot like a wounded animal, twisted metal, shattered glass, airbags exploded and deflated like sad balloons. It barely even looked like my car anymore. The attendant walked me around it with a clipboard and a frown. It's totaled, he said simply, flipping a few pages. Not worth repairing. You'll get more out of it selling it for scrap. I ran my hand across what used to be the driver's side door. Scratches, dents, deep gashes where the impact had caved it in. This car had gotten me through college. It had taken me to job interviews, late-night runs for groceries, weekend trips with friends who eventually drifted away. It was the one thing that had been mine, paid off with years of overtime and saving every penny. And now? Just junk. I signed the papers without flinching. A few $100s. Barely enough to cover the tow fees. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about letting go. I took the check, folded it into my wallet, and didn't look back as the lot workers hauled what remained of my old life away. That night, sitting on my floor, no couch, no TV, just me and the bare walls, I pulled out a map and started planning. Not a vacation. Not a break. A new beginning. Somewhere far. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere Madison couldn't find me, and my family's guilt couldn't reach. A place where I could finally live for myself, not for the wreckage others left behind. I packed light. A few clothes, some old books I couldn't bear to part with, and a single box of photographs, the ones that reminded me of who I used to be, before everything got so complicated. The apartment felt hollow as I moved through it one last time. No framed pictures on the walls. No furniture to make it feel like home. Just the ghost of all the years I spent waiting for things to get better. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not Madison. Not Mom. Not the few friends who still lived in town but had long since stopped calling. There wasn't anything left to say. I left my keys on the counter, a silent message to no one in particular, and walked out the front door. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in streaks of pale gold and pink. The kind of morning that felt like a promise if you were willing to believe in it. I slid behind the wheel of the used truck I bought with what little money I had left. It wasn't much, but it ran. And that was enough. As I pulled onto the highway, I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I already knew what I was leaving behind. A sister who saw love as a weapon. A family that mistook loyalty for servitude. A life built on forgiveness that was never returned. I was done chasing ghosts. The road stretched out ahead of me, long and open and humming with possibility. For the first time in years, I wasn't running away from something. I was running towards something new. The farther I drove, the lighter I felt. At first, it was hard to notice. It crept up slowly, like the way your ears pop when you climb a mountain, that strange pressure, and then, suddenly, release. I didn't realize how much I had been carrying until it was gone. Every mile put more distance between me and the old version of myself, the one who stayed up all night worrying about how to fix Madison's mistakes, the one who sat through family dinners biting his tongue until it bled, the one who believed that loyalty meant sacrificing yourself for people who never deserved it. Somewhere around the state line, I rolled the window down and let the cold morning air whip across my face. It stung my skin, made my eyes water, but I didn't care. For the first time, I was breathing air that no one else had claimed. I thought about Madison, sitting in that cell, probably spinning some story about how I had betrayed her. I thought about my mom, crying to anyone who would listen, painting herself as the victim while ignoring all the years I held her world together. And you know what? It didn't hurt. It didn't even make me angry anymore. It just didn't matter. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't some magical moment where you made peace with the past. It was simpler than that. Forgiveness was choosing to stop carrying it. Choosing to stop letting it weigh you down. They would go on without me, spinning their stories, pointing their fingers, blaming everyone but themselves. And I would go on too. Not as the villain of their stories. Not as the fool who stayed too long. But as someone who finally chose himself. The road stretched endlessly ahead, lined with trees just starting to bud, the early signs of a new season. A quiet promise that things could be different. Better. I didn't know exactly where I was going yet. Some small town, maybe. A job that paid enough to live simply. A quiet apartment where no one slammed doors or screamed threats or treated love like currency. A place where no one knew my name, or my past, and I could build something new from the ground up. Something mine. I pressed a little harder on the gas pedal, feeling the truck surge forward. Leaving wasn't weakness. Walking away wasn't failure. It was survival. It was strength. It was the beginning of the life I should have chosen years ago, before guilt and duty and blood ties convinced me to stay chained to people who would never set me free. As the first rays of real sunlight cracked over the horizon, I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Not because everything was perfect, but because, for once, it was finally mine. If you asked me now, sitting behind the wheel with the open road humming beneath me, what I learned from it all, would I tell someone trapped the way I was? The answer would be simple. Love doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It took me too long to understand that. We grow up hearing that family is everything. That blood is thicker than water. That loyalty is unconditional. But the truth is, loyalty without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. It's giving and giving and giving until there's nothing left of you but a hollowed-out shell, hoping someone will notice, someone will say thank you, someone will finally treat you like you matter. But the people who really love you, the ones worth bleeding for? They don't let it get that far. They don't expect you to destroy yourself to prove your worth. Madison wasn't just irresponsible. She was a mirror, showing me how little I valued myself every time I forgave what should have been unforgivable. Mom wasn't just blind to what was happening. She chose not to see, because as long as I kept sacrificing, she didn't have to change. And me? I wasn't just a victim. I was a volunteer. That's the part that hurts the most when you finally wake up, realizing no one was holding you there. You held yourself there. Because deep down, you were too afraid of what life would look like without them. But life without them? It's lighter. It's freer. It's honest. And yeah, it's lonelier sometimes. But it's your loneliness, not the loneliness of sitting in a crowded room full of people who don't really see you. If someone listening to this is stuck where I was, feeling guilty, feeling trapped, wondering if you're heartless for wanting to leave, you're not. Choosing yourself isn't cruelty. It's survival. It's the first real act of love you'll ever give yourself. And believe me, it's worth it. Every single mile. The sun was climbing higher now, warming the dashboard, casting long, golden beams across the road ahead. I didn't know exactly where I was going. But for the first time in my life, that didn't scare me. I rolled down the window again and let the fresh air rush in, carrying away the last scraps of the life I left behind. No more second chances. No more apologies. No more looking back. Just the open road, and a future that, for once, belonged only to me. And as the miles slipped by under my wheels, I realized something simple and profound. I wasn't lost. I was finally free.